So, the Switch 2 has finally been revealed, with a Nintendo Direct heading our way this April to go into further details. I think this gives us some time to think about what games we may be seeing early on in its life. Let's not waste any more time and get into a mix of predictions with some wishful thinking on my part. Let's go! First up, let's get the obvious one out of the way. A new Mario Kart. I mean, it's the only one that's been explicitly confirmed in the form of a few seconds of footage in the Switch 2 reveal that has been analysed to death by the Nintendo community at this point. Personally, I imagine this will be a straight up launch title. I mean, Mario Kart is usually the number one top selling exclusive on any Nintendo system, and if not, it's very much up there. They want to get something they know will sell well right out of the get-go. No waiting around, boom. Enough said. Moving on. Monolith Soft, best known in the Nintendo crowd as the developers of the Xenoblade Chronicles series, will most likely have something to show. These guys are practically Nintendo's miracle workers, challenging those who doubt Nintendo hardware by pushing it to the absolute limit and creating enriching RPGs with large expansive worlds to explore and arguably some of the greatest stories ever told in gaming. However, with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and its expansion Future Redeemed seemingly bringing closure to the numbered entries, collectively known as the Cloud Saga, what's next? While we do have the definitive edition of Xenoblade Chronicles X heading its way to Switch in March, a sequel could potentially follow shortly after, but my personal theory is that Monolith Soft will be working on a completely new IP that serves as a somewhat spiritual successor to Xenoblade, possibly in the form of a more action-oriented RPG with yet another expansive world to explore, and some kind of mechanic that shakes the genre up. Not sure what that might be, but I'm sure it's something that Xenoblade fans can get behind, while being something new and exciting to show promises of Nintendo expanding their IP portfolio. One of the main things we know about the Switch 2 is that it will be backwards compatible with the majority of Switch software, but there is an asterisk stating that there may be a few exceptions. What I reckon that will be is software and peripherals that interacted with the Joy-Cons in unconventional ways, such as the Nintendo Labo line, and, what the focus of this segment is, Ring Fit Adventure. The animation in the reveal trailer establishes that the new Switch 2 Joy-Cons will be slightly larger than the Switch 1, meaning they won't be able to slot onto the Ring-Con that came along with Ring Fit, which is why I'm predicting a full-on sequel is in the works, complete with a new Ring-Con for the new Joy-Cons. I think we all tend to sleep on how well Ring Fit Adventure actually did, and sure, that can be attributed to a surge in sales during the you-know-what in 2020, but then again, Wii Fit didn't really have that excuse, and look how well that did. Fitness fused with gaming, or exergaming, has clearly been proven to have its place in the market, so naturally, I imagine Nintendo will want to capitalize on it early on as yet another way to show more unconventional methods of play. Here's going to be one of my more bold predictions. The first major 3D platforming experience Nintendo will push for the Switch 2 won't be Mario. It will either be a sequel to Kirby and the Forgotten Land, or a brand new Donkey Kong game. In Kirby's case, Forgotten Land was the first proper attempt to bring Kirby into 3D, and it was a tremendous success, with rave reviews and quickly becoming the best-selling entry in the entire series. It has been nearly 3 years since its release, and I imagine HAL Laboratories immediately jumped into cooking the next one to expand on its foundation, so they may have something ready to show for all we know. It might depend though, as I imagine 3D platformers would take longer to develop than 2D platformers, but considering how frequent we get something Kirby related, it's not too far-fetched to assume that there could be something on the way sooner rather than later. As for Donkey Kong, it feels like there has been quite a bit of activity to have at least something going on, considering the remake of Mario vs Donkey Kong from last year and the recent Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, but the closest to an actual original entry we got on Switch, outside of a remaster or remake of an existing title, was the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC campaign for Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which I'm not so sure counts. It is for this reason that I think we're finally going to see something more crazy and ambitious for Donkey Kong, and a new 3D Mario might just have to wait to give it some time in the spotlight early on in the Switch 2's life. DK is still Mario adjacent, and I imagine Nintendo could go for a similar approach to the GameCube, where they had Luigi's Mansion as a launch title, while Super Mario Sunshine came out a year later, as a way of breaking trends. I thought I'd mention a bit of a curveball that I think has become less likely due to recent developments, but I was going to suggest another Platinum Games collab, much like the wonderful 101 or Astral Chain, which has become somewhat of a staple for Nintendo since the Wii U. And, spoiler warning for Bayonetta 3, but I was going to guess that we are going to see somewhat of a soft reboot of the series starring Viola, who has adopted the Bayonetta mantle after Cereza's apparent demise at the end of that game. This will be one of the more divisive reveals, not just because of Bayo 3's controversial ending and fans' mixed opinions on Viola's character and playstyle, but also out of fear that this new entry isn't exactly in the best hands, after many major people from Platinum Games have left the studio, such as Hideki Kamiya himself forming Clovers to work on the newly announced Okami sequel. For all we know, this could be another Wind Waker situation, where the build-up to its release is initially met with backlash, but could eventually win people over, or it could be Bayonetta's equivalent of Metroid Prime Federation Force, which didn't seem to change people's minds post-release due to its critical and commercial reception in the end. Now, let's get to The Legend of Zelda, which is in a bit of an interesting situation. I do feel that a brand new 3D adventure is a bit soon, considering Tears of the Kingdom came out in 2023, so still pretty recent in the grand scheme of things, especially considering the release gap between that and Breath of the Wild, and we've only just seen Echoes of Wisdom last year, so those working on the 2D games might need a little room to breathe. Unless we bring back another style of Zelda game. I'm actually kind of surprised that the Switch never really saw an iteration of the Four Swords duology or Triforce Heroes on the 3DS, considering a big sort of gimmick of the Switch was having the Joy-Cons be split into two separate controllers, which really could have lended itself well with the cooperative multiplayer experience that those games offered. So that's why I'm making the prediction that the Switch 2 will have something along those lines early on to tide Zelda fans over for something much bigger in a year or two from now. After all, Zelda is probably Nintendo's most other important franchise besides Mario, and it would be odd to not have anything Zelda related come to a new system to push early purchases, as Breath of the Wild alone was a huge factor in the Switch 1's launch year success. Anyway, those were some early predictions I had in mind for the Switch 2. I hope you've enjoyed some of my ideas. Obviously, I don't expect all of these to become a reality. They were mostly educated guesses, so hopefully one or two of them will come true. Who knows? Only time will tell. Be sure to let me know what some of your predictions are in the comments, and we can get a discussion going. Also, don't forget to stay tuned for more Switch 2 coverage on my channel, as there's more on the way. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see you later.